I smuggle gold, diamond, cigarettes, pistachio nuts, but no heroin, no heroin, no heroin.
Welcome back to Ranked. I'm Charles.
I'm McCurdy.
Skit.
Nathan.
Skit.
Skit. Skit. Exhausted from jumping over the massive space shark that was Moonraker, the Bond franchise eases back into the real-world drama of the Cold War with For Your Eyes Only, a tragic seafaring Seafaring.
Seafaring.
A tragic seafaring mishap off the coast of Albania brings the ATAC, the McGuffin equivalent of the Lektor decoder, to the bottom of the ocean, setting off a race for its recovery between the Brits and the Russkies. What follows is more Roger Moore chases and assassination attempts, but also a twisting and turning spy story of loss, revenge, deception, and betrayal with a subtle shade of statutory rape. McCurdy,
I know what he's talking about.
Subtle.
what you got, booty?
Well, I'm going to backtrack here. We were talking about seafaring voyages. In another chapter of the battle for the rights of Thunderball, Kevin McClory was ramping up to produce his long-awaited
At
remake
this point,
of
if
the
they're going to
character.
assassinate anybody, they should just have assassinated Kevin McClory. Can I legally say that?
He's
Oh,
dead.
he's dead. He's dead.
dead.
Great. They should have
He's
killed him
dead.
sooner. I know we toasted to him, and he deserves praise. But at the same time,
Yeah.
every movie's like, oh, once again, Kevin came back and wanted to. He's complaining again.
Again, Kevin's the guy who did something on a project before, and then he's like, remember, I came up with that idea.
Yeah.
That was mine. You can't,
Kevin, you were
can't use that."
blackout drunk the whole time, and you ate all the food out of the fridge.
Kevin McClory was ramping up to produce his own long-awaited remake of the character because it was his legal obligation. He was legally bound and he could do that. To make matters worse, like we had talked about in The Spy Who Loved Me, Blofeld was off the table, which is kind of up to debate because Blofeld is in other books as well, which they own the rights to. So, in an effort for Albert R. Broccoli to give a metaphoric middle finger to McClory, it was decided to kill Blofeld in the opening credits to say, we don't need Blofeld to be successful. It, however, was also intended to introduce a new James Bond. Moore, of course, we were all thinking it as we're watching this movie. Moore is starting to show his age. It doesn't help matters when you probably have one of the youngest Bond girls in a film in this movie, and he looks old.
Especially during Scuba when they cut back to him, and it's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like that, you know? Like she's just like her skin is flawless, and then he's like,
He's
like
a
that?
prune. Again, I have to reiterate, he is older than Connery is. He's 2
Yeah.
years older than Connery, and yet he is still doing these movies.
and he's still classy, he's still charming and all that, but at a certain point, there are select shots where it just shows. There's some where it's like, dude, still got it, and then others where it's,
I think he's even quoted at one point saying that the Bond girls at one point could have been his granddaughters. I think he is quoted for
Dude,
saying that at some point in this. It may have been this
BB.
film.
BB.
Yeah.
I think you're wonderful, BB, but I don't think your Uncle Harry would approve.
Him? He thinks I'm still a virgin.
When Bond is in that Q scene after he, makes his little joke about the Lotus, and Q punches in the key code.
I don't suppose you find it funny in the field.
Indeed, I don't.
Nobody does
Does
it
it
better. Which is,
Huh.
it's like,
Did not notice.
are
that.
they just calling out like their favorite? Like we know that's
Well, I
Roger
mean, they
Moore's
did that.
favorite
They
movie.
did that
but
in On Her Majesty's Secret Service with Goldfinger.
that movie was making a ton of references. Like everything was referencing Sean Connery movies.
Because they were trying to tie the movies together. I do wonder if they were doing that because they, again, like they said in the beginning, that opening sequence was also going to be a way into introducing a new James Bond. Had Roger Moore not done the next movie because they were looking for somebody else.
That's what you meant. You meant that had they recast him.
Yeah. So that intro is not only Broccoli saying like, screw you, McClory. But it's also, they were like, oh, well, we're going to try to tie this new Bond, the old franchise, by doing this whole scene where he kills Blofeld.
Yeah.
And that's how they were going to tie it. But obviously they didn't do that, and they just brought Roger Moore back. But it just emphasizes the point that that is the same James Bond from all these other movies. He hasn't changed. So Michael Wilson, Broccoli's stepson and executive producer, and newly appointed director, formerly editor John Glen, wanted this film to return to form, so to speak, because as Charlie had mentioned in the intro, the last movie pretty much jumps the shark and goes really big. And even though it was a huge success, they didn't want to repeat things. They didn't want it to become too outlandish. So this film is sort of a course corrector. And we had talked about this previously in some other movies where things got really big, the stakes got really huge. I mean, we had You Only Live Twice, got really big. And then when we got to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the stakes got a little bit smaller. Things weren't as outlandish as the previous film. So there's this ebb and flow with the Bond series, and this is no exception.
And it's always the same stuff, too. It's like,
yeah,
like the stakes are the world. There's tons of gadgets then. There's, all kinds of zaniness. And then, the stakes are small, then like the gadgets go away, and
So going off of what you're just saying though, so John Glen had even made the decision he didn't want less gadgets, and it is that there's one specific scene that he's like, this is kind of me putting my stamp and saying like, we're not doing gadgets in this movie, and that's when we see the new James Bond car in this film is a Lotus, and it looks really awesome, but it doesn't do anything except explodes. And the rest of the movie, Bond has to use his own wits and umbrellas and traffic things and everything else to best the villains. He does, with the exception, he does use his Walther, I think, once or twice.
They even used the Walther for a fun little character relationship moment with Columbo, where he hands it over to him, and it's like Bond gets his lightsaber back, and he's like smashes that mag in, and he's like, "Let's go," But I know they always have goofy stuff going on in Q scenes, but with this, it's really goofy stuff, between the cast and then the
stinging in the rain.
That's not funny, 007.
Really stupid stuff just to check the boxes of like, okay, here's some Q gadgets that you'll never see in the field. But on the note of the car, though, what's funny, as stupid as that moment is that you just knock on Bond's window and it explodes, I laugh my ass off every time. It's always funny to watch that guy explode. And then on top of that, when they're in Q's lab and he's like,
I see you managed to get the Lotus back together again.
I disregard these jibes about our equipment, 007.
He's like, yeah, whatever. Fuck you, Bond. It was like, Q, you're the one who made it so that if you knock on the window, it explodes. Like, you did that. That's your fault,
Oh, my God.
Usually it's Bond's fault, but yeah, anyway.
Just a couple more things. So this film borrows heavily, because again, this is we're going back to the books. We're going back to the source material. This film borrows heavily from the short story, which is For Your Eyes Only, as well as another one called Risco. I think that's how you say it. It looks like Crisco. It's Risico. If anybody knows actually how to pronounce that, please let me know. That one borrows more of the Columbo versus Kristatos plot line, and then the For Your Eyes Only borrows more of the Melina's revenge story, except the character in that one's called Judy, but it's a lot of the same stuff. But they kind of merged those two plots together in this movie.
And then just because I read Live and Let Die, I can tell you that Mr. Big is the one who keel hauls Bond,
yes,
and Solitaire, and so they just gave that to Kristatos in this.
And I think that's like a good villain scene as far as like, how do you get rid of my foe? Let's keel haul him, and
like in a way that
badass too.
They will not get away. Like they're done for, know, and it's a miracle that they survived, and it feels that way.
So you have Topol, who plays Milos Columbo, and his character, the character of Columbo, was there was another Columbo. I can't pronounce his first name because I'm terrible at pronouncing things. My name's George Bush. Thank you very much.
You've had like 10 so far this episode. But
They're hard.
I get tired of importing the
French
images
names.
of George W. Bush to put over your face. Like I got tired of doing it, so now I'm like, whatever.
But anyway, Fleming was admired one of the engineers from Ferrari, and his name was Columbo. So he put that name in this story, as well as the pistachios that he throws, like he eats and everything. That was all Topol's. That was all his idea. And so the idea would be like you'd eat those and it would throw them at the enemies, so then his guys could go shoot at him, which is kind of a cool character moment that he had created.
who is Topol? Like, should I know this guy? Why does he
He
have
sounds
one
like
name?
I should know him, but I don't know him.
You really don't?
No.
I assume he's a pop singer.
If I were a rich man.
dude, really?
Yeah, he's
No
Fiddler on the
way.
Roof. Yeah. You guys
Fiddler
know.
on the
There's no
Roof.
way you
I
don't
didn't-
fucking know that.
I've never,
That's
I've never,
awesome.
honestly, I've never seen
yeah,
Fiddler on the Roof.
he's
So I
Fiddler
don't
on the
know.
Roof. He's the main character. But
I'm going on, I'm on a whole run of mispronouncing names. So how do you pronounce his name in this movie?
I'm looking at IMDb and it just says Topol. Or Topol or something.
So I need to see Fiddler on the Roof.
Which goes back to Dr. No when they were toppling spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
They just keep referencing Bond movies.
Topol became a rich man.
And then, of course, we have the true villain of this film, Kristatos, is played by Julian Glover. You guys all should know him from films such as Empire Strikes Back and Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade. But in the more recent times...
none of those movies are Lord of the Rings, so I don't care. Fuck you.
But more recently, he plays... he played Grandmaster Pycelle in Game of Thrones. And his henchman in this movie is played by a very young Charles Dance. And so they kind of do a swap as far as who's in charge. And Charles Dance played Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones, which is the second time we've had Game of Thrones alum sort of reverse, Bond alum in Game of Thrones movies. I guess that would be the correct way of saying it. But yes, they were both in Game of Thrones.
It's kind of funny. He died the exact same way here as he did in Game of Thrones. Do you guys want to know why this movie sucks? Because nobody's in it that's in Lord of the Rings. This movie blows.
Game of Thrones is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. But with more TNA. Yeah, what? Lord of the Rings, you have two chicks that you're like, I don't know which one I'd rather bang, but like...
There's like more chicks.
There aren't
in
even
the
any
other one.
boobies. It's so classy. Lame.
This piece is really fascinating. I'm going to butcher her name. The character's name is the Countess. I don't even know how to pronounce her actual character name.
Liesel
von Schlaf?
Sure.
Yeah.
Liesel von
It's
Schlaf.
Liesel, yeah.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. I just called her the Countess, whatever.
You
she's
should
played
just,
by
instead of throwing
Cassandra.
out BS disclaimers, you should just do it because it's funnier
Yeah, exactly.
when you just
give
butcher
it a shot.
everything.
Liesel von Schlaf. Falafel waffle. But anyway, she's played by Cassandra Harris, who was on the set of Your Eyes Only, brought her newly wedded husband. You may know him as Pierce Brosnan,
Oh,
who we all know.
I know that guy.
Who we all know will go
I
on to
know
play Remington Steele. So,
Yep.
but I mean, in actuality, yes, he was on the set, and Albert R. Broccoli and Wilson, they were very, impressed by him, and they all were thinking the same thing. You should play Remington Steele on that NBC television show. So,
You put in your time with Remington Steele, and maybe we'll see you in a bit. Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
but he was in consideration, and again, I can't reiterate this enough. Moore's looking like a raisin. He's looking pretty.
Yeah.
So
God, imagine Moore meets him, and he's like, "I know why you're here, you asshole. Get out of here. You're so young and delicious, smooth as butter."
You're delicious.
We'll get to that. Everything Pierce Brosnan does is just smooth.
I've got three more things we could talk about, but I'd rather talk about that when we start talking about the movie. So let's keep going. What did you guys think of For Your Eyes Only? I'm going to go to Nans because Nans is our go-to. I've never seen these movies before.
He's Mr. Gut Reaction.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, to give you my gut reaction, I thought it was not too shabby.
Hey!
It was, especially like the first half or so, was pretty solid. And then there were a lot of like twists and turns that I did get confused. Like, who's who? What's going on?
Yeah.
What's the point of the ATAC? And we kind of like forget about the ATAC for a while and come back to it. So that
They
wasn't
kind of
super
dump all
great,
that stuff
but
on you real quick, like right away. They're like, the ATAC, we need it, or else everybody's gonna die.
Our own submarines could be ordered to attack our own cities.
I've got it somewhere towards the middle table. There's a lot of cool parts. There's a lot of interesting parts. There's also a lot of I don't know, the cringy parts that
The statutory rape parts.
hurt while watching. No. Well, yeah, but
At least they threw in there this little bit of a disclaimer that's like, Bond may get it in frequently, but the dude has some class.
even Bond has a line.
Everybody knows it builds up muscle tone.
It's not building up a little more muscle tone by putting on your clothes.
I actually liked in this movie that like they really toned that portion of Bond's character down.
Well, and honestly, I'm shocked to hear that that's Pierce Brosnan's wife, because my thought watching this movie, I always laugh because I'm like, Bond almost bangs a minor, and then Bond bangs a gilf.
Yeah.
Like, she comes across as being
She
pretty
seems
old.
a lot older.
She looks older, yeah.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this is the sad news that I didn't realize until I was reading it, because I knew the history about Pierce Brosnan, but apparently she had passed away in 1991, and they were married still. So,
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty rough. And
Sorry,
Is she
Pierce.
a good amount older than Pierce, or
I didn't look at that, but yeah, she had passed away from ovarian cancer in 91. I mean, that's like 10 years after this movie came out, so it's kind of
Man.
unfortunate, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's too bad.
yeah?
Well, okay, let's start at the beginning. I think killing Blofeld is such an excellent you. Like, it's just long time coming. Like, shut up, Kevin. We're done. We're just gonna kill him off in this ridiculous but fun fashion. And it's just a nice little scene that you could kind of argue that it's something of a waste of a prologue. Like, it's too bad that because whatever, maybe the prologue would have been like the last bundle of movies where the prologue is whatever tragedy that occurs, you know, the ATAC, essentially.
When we see Melina's parents get killed, if you watch it carefully, like
That zoom into her
the
eyes.
zoom ins to her eyes, and you have to wonder if they were on the fence of like, oh, crap, do we want to do this Blofeld beginning
For your eyes.
only? And then it would end on her eyes of full of revenge and being like, I'm gonna kill the people who killed my parents. And like that would have been the start of the movie, is my assumption. But of course, like they went with the Blofeld thing. So
The Blofeld thing almost seems like very tonally different to the movie too. It's cool to
Yeah.
see Bond at the cemetery,
yeah, to like tie everything back together.
and then they go into the whole Blofeld thing, which is a little cheesy or schlocky or whatever you want to say.
You've
but-
had a good fright. You know,
Yeah.
he's trying to do a Bond
The
joke.
line that everyone is always baffled by is,
We can do a deal! I'll buy you a delicatessen in stainless steel!
what is that?
I'll buy you a delicatessen in stainless steel, which I had to look up because you know, I'm like that. I was hoping that what I was
Yeah,
going
I
to
did the
read
same.
was something directly referencing, directly calling out Kevin McClory himself. Like, I was hoping it was something that they said in arbitration or something, you know?
Yeah.
Turns out all it is, and this is from Cubby himself, it's a line that the mafia would generally use. It's really not that interesting. It's just something that, like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's what
Italian
I'd read.
mobsters, like, you were a big player if you had a deli that had stainless steel counters rather than just a cart out on the street, like a meat cart on the street.
Mm.
So it's it just means I'll make you a big player. And I guess according to Cubby, it was like it was meant to just make Blofeld seem like a
Insignificant.
small insignificant character rather than Bond's greatest nemesis as he, you know, dumps him off. But
yeah.
but I mean, overall, is there anything more satisfying than when that helicopter moves forward and Dr. Evil falls down the chute? You know, it's just
Yeah.
in his neck
it's just
brace.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
Bond, Mr. Bond. Yeah, and well, okay. So speaking of neck brace, what's
Yes.
kind of interesting is when you look at all these Blofeld movies, they're all out of order. If you could go back and you could rearrange them, if you could fan edit all this into proper order, it
Yeah.
should be not seeing him up until You Only Live Twice, and then we have our reveal, and then he gets away. Then Diamonds Are Forever, where it opens with him looking for Blofeld with all the plastic surgery stuff, kind of bringing about this idea that Blofeld can change, right? He can have a different face, and that makes him more elusive. Then leading to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where it opens up with like, well, you haven't found him for 2 years. It's like, well, obviously, because this guy is a lot slipperier than we thought. And then that would, of course, explain why Bond doesn't recognize him when he's, looking him right in the face. And then, you could still have your Tracy Bond stuff there, leading then to For Your Eyes Only with, visiting the gravesite and all that. And the fact that he's in a neck brace going from On Her Majesty's Secret Service to For Your Eyes Only, as opposed to Diamonds Are Forever, where he suddenly doesn't have a neck brace, but then it just comes back. But all that stuff is so out of order. It's so weird the way it turned out. And, if only it could be switched around. And like we always talk about, I have no doubt in my mind that it's always the same Bond. This is always an argument, right? Like, is it the same Bond that we get for 20 films or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, of course, duh. Like, why wouldn't it be? But little changes like that would solidify that. You have all these things connecting them, but Blofeld would really solidify that whole flow.
There is one part to that scene that makes me audibly laugh out loud, like properly, which doesn't happen very often during Bond films, but when he's like, all right, keep your hair on, and just pats him on the head, like outside of the helicopter window. He's just so obviously like a dummy right before he drops him down. It's just,
at that point, he's perfect. Just a Kevin McClory proxy. Like, they're just belittling him as much as they can before they brutally murder him, including, him yelling out the delicatessen line. It just makes him sound lame.
Made of stainless steel.
Okay, leading into the title sequence, though, I really, really, really hate that the title sequence of this movie is a music video. For your eyes only can see me through the night.
Yeah, we actually see the artist.
And this is the first time they ever do that.
I hate it. And the only time. Is she the artist or just the model?
She is the artist.
She's
the actual artist in the song.
Easton.
Okay. That's cool, but otherwise I hate it. I hate that it's a music video.
It's also interesting. It's like this is the first 80s movie.
Yeah.
Like everything before that was...
We're moving into the time of music videos.
It's weird how 80s this movie feels. When was it released?
81. So this one comes out in
It's like
81.
Immediately we're into the 80s, I guess.
Well, it's like we'd been in the 70s for the last 4 movies. And so now Moore gets... His next 3 are in the 80s. Which is just interesting, and he's just straddling 2 decades basically.
Wait! Like in his 80s, like he's 80.
No,
he's 80 years old.
No, that's not what I said.
I agree, Charlie, that I don't necessarily like the overshadowing of her in the whole overall of the intro. Like used to the normal colors and silhouettes that we see, it kind of dumbs it down because it seems more focused on her. But what are people's thoughts on the song? We don't often talk about this one, but this one's kind of a big song for me.
This is like not
personally
one of my favorites. I did put it in my notes.
It was fine, but nothing special for me.
I did put in my notes that basically they didn't get John Barry back, and it's very, very obvious in the score of this movie. And we get Bill Conti, is that how you say his name?
Sure.
Who does he did the score for Rocky. So if you hear anything that sounds like instrumental rockiness, it's because they used the same guy. For many Bond fans, this is not, as far as the scores go, this isn't one of the better ones.
I just see Rocky running on the beach.
I do love this song, though.
Like, it sounds like a Rocky score. It doesn't sound like a Bond score.
Put that over Liesel running and then getting hit by that.
Yeah.
Which that was an impressive. That was an impressive hit. Like, clearly, it didn't look like a rag doll, whatever it was.
This movie was also PG, correct? Don't they often shoot for PG?
So PG-13 doesn't come around till the Temple of Doom, which came out in '84.
Oh, okay.
So till this point, as far as movie history, we finally get a rating system. So before that, everything had to be go through the code and had to be within the code. But then we started getting a rating system which only included G, PG, and R, and then there was X, which X was more allocated to like porn. And then there were a lot of movies that like still have their PG rating today, but if they went back and said, "Oh, we're going to re-rate this," they would probably get a PG-13 rating.
I will say the one point where that's kind of obvious, where they're trying to hold to like a PG standard, is Apostle or Apostus or whatever, the guy he knifes off of the cliff. He falls like 100 feet, no fall damage whatsoever, just knife and a little bit
Just
of
the
blood.
knife, yeah.
The scream is actually kind of comical.
The sound effect, though, is kind of interesting that when he thuds, you know, it's like,
No damage, no fall damage whatsoever.
Again, you have the editor taking over as director, which we had when Peter Hunt, who edited pretty much all the Sean Connery movies, then directs On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And what's so interesting about this movie is it has so much in common with On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
yeah.
So much. Surface level stuff like, playing in the snow, skiing, the bobsledding, and all that. A showdown on a beach with cars driving on that beach.
Yeah.
With like the girl in the windy dress blowing around. And then in their own way, they both die via windshield. A raid on a mountain stronghold with the mortal enemy of Bond's enemy, Draco and Blofeld. And then here you have Columbo versus Kristatos, where Draco and Columbo are kind of bad guys themselves. They're like bad good guys.
Mark-Ange Draco, head of the Union Court, one of the biggest crime syndicates in Europe.
The biggest.
I smuggle gold, diamond, cigarettes, pistachio nuts, but no heroin.
He's still a criminal, but he's a good guy, same as Draco. You have the Teresa connection in the opening, with Blofeld, almost like it's a direct sequel to Secret Service.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I looked it up real quick. So he edited On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which could explain why he makes a lot of the choices he does in this film.
Wait. Did he watch Secret Service and he said, "Someday, Peter, I don't want to keep doing all these fast edits that you love, okay? Someday I'm going to take over directing and I'm going to make a better movie than On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which sucks, bro."
And then he also does The Spy Who Loved Me, and he did Moonraker.
Okay, wait, hang on. If he did Moonraker, do you think it was John Glen who did Double Take Pigeon?
Yeah.
Do you think that was his idea?
Maybe. He was like, this fucking movie sucks. It needs Double Take Pigeon.
Cubby saw Double Take Pigeon. He was like, promotion for this guy, dude. That was hilarious.
Director.
Keep it in there. Yeah, but I actually like John Glenn's directing in this one, particularly because it is, even the style and look of this movie just looks more like a
little more grounded of a spy
It's a
drama.
more grown-up, serious take on Bond. It's not as, like, it's funny, like, a lot of people give Roger Moore a lot of slack for being the goofy Bond, but this movie is very light on that.
I think Moore is great as Bond in this movie.
Yeah,
He does a great job.
For me, this is his second best movie. Like,
yeah.
After The Spy Who Loved Me, this is his second best.
Like, no doubt that his approach to the character then informs what we collectively call the goofiness. But that's the odd thing about it. Like, did they kind of shape it around his approach or vice versa? Like this weird chicken and the egg thing, because it's not like Bond himself is goofy. Bond is, like Roger Moore, he does get a lot of shit, but Roger Moore's so awesome. He's so awesome.
Well, I hope you have a car.
They did mention right in the writing that they wish they had Sean Connery to bring back the realism. Because again, like this movie's whole focus was to let's bring it back down to earth, like literally and metaphorically. Let's bring everything back down to earth. Let's go back to basics. Like we went too far. We need to settle down, guys. Let's go back to From Russia with Love, essentially.
And there's some great sequences in this movie. You've got the keel hauling, the being dragged behind the boat, the mountain climb and raid, that warehouse raid, along with Locke's death, which is just awesome.
The olive tree car chase, I think that's pretty good.
That was really cool.
The helicopter fright, as Blofeld put it, the death of Melina's parents, and all of those things all service the story.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've always said, I like the big stakes movies, but I really enjoy and love the smaller stakes. Because with this one, again, it's not like with the Lektor, it was like, okay, who cares if they get the Lektor? Like, too bad for them. With this, the ATAC is at least like, well, they could use this thing to use our own submarines to fire on our cities. So that's pretty significant. But all the same, it's not the whole ticking clock to then the world's going to explode or whatever, or everybody's going to be doomed to fish for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
I like the grounded stuff. So the movie's definitely trying to push that smaller, more subtle, more interesting spy story. But all the same, it feels as if they still have those producers in their ear that's like, but audiences are expecting another zany assassin.
The hockey assassins. It's a scene that does feel out of place in the movie.
As the movies keep going on, you have to, like I think you said it before, McCurdy, it's like you either have to reinvent yourself or you have to push the envelope. But with this, it's like, well, we don't want to keep pushing the envelope to where we have gondola stuff again. But at the same time, audiences, they're expecting that. So we kind of need to put that stuff in there.
I'll say this, though. One of the things I read was that, like, at this point, Wilson had said, like, the Michael G. Wilson, the executive producer, and he's going to go on to basically produce these movies, basically. But he does point out that, like, at this point in time, the outline for this movie would have been Broccoli and Wilson and Richard Baybaum, who wrote this movie, so he's back in the writing chair, which you can kind of feel that because Baybaum wrote all of the early Bond films, and the stunt coordinators. Like, I can't address that enough. The stunt coordinators were also involved in this movie, and that also happens today with movies like Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise sits in a room with some stunt guys, and they're like, "What would be cool? What should we do? Should we do a plane? Like, should we do something where you're hanging off a plane? Should we do like?" And they start thinking of all these crazy stunts that they could do to make the movie enjoyable for the audience. They'd create an outline, then they would hand it off to the writer to basically turn into the movie, which you kind of see. I mean, it is kind of by committee, but at the same time, it's like it definitely has Baybaum's, because I think he was the best of the Bond writers for sure. Like, I think he's better than Mankiewicz. I mean, he is definitely better than Ronald Dahl and Christopher Wood. So I think he definitely had a good amount of why this movie is good in there. Because, I mean, yeah, the stakes, everything's real.
You can't pronounce a single one of their names correctly, but I don't want to correct you because
Baybaum is not how you correctly pronounce his name?
Every time it sounds like Baybaum and Ronald Dahl. It just, crack me up, you George W. Bush motherfucker.
Roald Dahl, whatever.
Within the Roger Moore era, we have this whole thing with, you have these, henchmen, these super assassins with certain traits. And a lot of times it's a physical deformity that they turn into a strength, but then Bond turns it back into a weakness. Like with Teehee with his metal arm, Bond uses that against him. Or Jaws' teeth in The Spy Who Loved Me, Bond then uses that against him with the magnet. In this one, it's very simple. Just Kriegler is just like super strong, and he's like, I'm going to smash you, Bond, with this big old rock thing. And then Bond uses that strength against him very cleverly. No gadget. He just picks up that
candle
thing, that
holder
candle thing,
and
and just pushes him out the window. It's so perfectly simple. It's just he doesn't have this elongated poof poof fight. He just clever as a motherfucker. Just pushes that big ass rock out the window, and he ragdolls. Gogol in the beginning, he's saying, yes, the suspected British spy ship we've been monitoring. So it's like the Russians were aware of this ship, this fishing ship, could possibly have this like intelligence apparatus on it, right? Well, what blows up the ship, fellas? What blows it up?
A mine.
A mine that they capture in a fishing net. My question to you guys is this. It seems like a total accident, right? And that's actually kind of great that just this total accident sets off this series of events. But do you remember what we saw in Kristatos' warehouse? What did we see?
The mines.
We see a bunch of mines sitting there. So, like, do you guys think they targeted it? I mean, at that point, you might as well just shoot it with a submarine. But do you think it's connected?
But doesn't he say something when they're trying to figure out where everything's at when they're on that boat with the parrot and everything? And doesn't he say something like, "Oh, well, wasn't it one of his buoys or something like that?" It's like, yeah, Kristatos' buoy is mapped here on the map here, so which connects with the mines as well.
Let me quote Minister of Defense. I don't follow. What?
It's almost like he forgot his line and he was just like, "Meh," and they were like, let's keep it in the movie.
Do you guys think it was an accident, or do you think that mine was placed there?
I think it was on purpose.
Yeah, it just seems like it's like a lot of things have to go well for you if you're dropping mines into the ocean and hoping to hit one ship. You know what I mean?
But remember that other submarine they had in the movie?
The nerd guy? You mean the nerd guy?
The nerd guy?
He's like...
Is it possible in our headcanon here that he had that other mine and
put it in the net,
floated it to the net?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. So he
ties it all together there.
He chased the St. George's for like weeks, and he's like, you know, in his little bubble, and he's like pulling this mine with him. Okay. Well, because again, I mean, they put those big ass mines there in the warehouse for a reason, just like the deep diving suit there.
The deep
make
dive
it
suit's
very
there.
obvious.
So
it's, you know what it reminded me of though? Like this, you don't need to put this in the episode. It reminds me of The Rise of Skywalker, where they were like, okay, we need to explain all this stuff that we can't quite explain. So we're gonna have a scene where Kylo Ren comes down to this planet and there's like a vat of Smeagol's, or whatever, not Smeagol's, whatever they're called. The bad guy in the last two Star Wars movies. And there's a vat of Snoke. There's a vats of Snokes just there, and you're like, oh, he's a clone, and you're like, oh, that explains it all. You know, it's like that's how they explain Kristoff. You know, they're like, no heroin. No heroin.
No heroin.
No heroin.
More.
No, you always have to cover your face. He covered his face.
No
heroin. Because he has no camera awareness. No heroin.
No heroin.
I guess when I was reading about this film, Roger Moore has vertigo, like severe vertigo. So during those scenes where he would have to pose for a short period of time, he would take a Valium and drink a tall beer. And he would have to hang maybe like 4 to 10 feet off the ground while his stunt double was doing like 25 feet. But just to get him through those scenes.
That's hilarious.
That brings up another point when he talks that like one of the more outstanding scenes in the movie is when he kills Locke.
You left this with Ferrara, I believe.
Which is one of the most badass scenes in the movie. It's one of the
badass.
It is Charlie's, as he puts it, ice in his veins Bond moments.
Yeah.
Moore didn't want to do it. Like originally, Moore's like,
oh God.
Moore's like, I
love you, Roger Moore, but like you're such a pussy.
He's like, can we kill him?
I don't
want to
twist her arm. Can I just seduce her instead? No. But I don't want to push the indigenous child into the muddy water. He's so poor and he.
You're an awful person, Charlie. You're so bad.
I don't want to push this psychopath over the cliff and avenge my friend.
It's not like he actually died. So what do you mean? Why would he feel bad about doing that?
So he didn't want to do that scene because he just didn't think he could play it off that way. I mean, again, like Roger Moore's the I'll get you an ice cream.
He's like Leonidas kicking that messenger down the well.
Exactly. Yeah. But then they decided, he's just like, fine, f it, let's do it.
That whole moment is just perfection.
Yeah.
But then that's the only Bond joke of the film is...
Had no head for heights.
They probably could have just not said that, but whatever.
Yeah, that part wasn't
It certainly didn't hurt the scene. And it's a bit ironic, of course, because as Scott pointed out, we know that it was Roger Moore who didn't have a head for heights. I really have just one gripe with the movie, and that's what I was hinting at a couple minutes ago, which is that they, it seems like John Glenn's like, let's just bring it down. Okay, we were in space. We were literally up here. Let's bring it down a little bit. Let's bring it back down to Earth, if you will. Let's approach this thing a little more realistically and just do a little bit more of an intelligent spy drama. Jump back into the Cold War and all that. And again, you just have all these different parties all fighting each other for, just again, like I said about Diamonds Are Forever, like the fun part about McGuffin movies is it's like, I have it, now I have it, now I have it. With this, it's really, that's not the case because it's just like, they get the ATAC, and then the bad guys have it, and they have to go get it. It's not changing hands like the Solex or anything, but it is all these different conflicting parties all fighting over this one thing. You know, the winner takes all if they can get the ATAC. But but what you have in there is another one of these twists that we have talked about in the past, like when Miss Anders reveals that she was the one who sent the bullet to Bond in The Man with the Golden Gun. You know, she reveals that truth, and it's not like this moment. It's just kind of underwhelming, you know? And then, like Scott with Moonraker, when you were saying, yeah, when Drax reveals, you know, and Bond's like, why did you hijack your own space shuttle? And he's like, because I needed it. And it's like, oh, you know, it's just kind of an underwhelming revelation. With this, it is a pretty great twist where this guy they thought was an ally, Kristatos, was trying to mislead Bond into thinking that the good guy is actually the bad guy.
You know this man?
Oh, yes. Locke, Columbo's right hand. Stopping Columbo will be difficult. He has important connections. You cannot just arrest him. You must find a different way. You may have to kill him.
It is Kristatos you want, not me. He told you about himself. He's the one with the powerful connections. Locke works for him, not for me.
Columbo runs heroin to be refined here before it is sent to England.
No heroin.
And he's like, you should go kill that guy. You should kill him. You should kill Columbo. The reason I bring it up in relation to those other revelations is because once you know that information and then you watch the movie again, it seems really kind of stupid the amount of times they try to kill Bond. Now, again, I'm the keep Bond alive guy. I'm the, hey, you know, give your bad guy a good reason to keep Bond alive, and that keeps the plot interesting, because assassination attempt after assassination attempt, eventually Bond is just Superman. And it's like, how many times is this guy going to save the world? How many times is this guy going to best these goofy assassins that just keep escalating to the point where now we have hockey assassins? You know, it just keeps doing this. So when you're trying to make your movie smart, right, and bring it back down to earth, you have your deceptive bad guy, and then he's got Kriegler working for him, right? Kriegler's a biathlon skier shooter, and he starts hunting Bond in the woods. All he's got to do, like a smarter movie, like John Glenn really bringing it down to earth, would have had Kriegler shoot at Bond in the woods, and then Bond gets away, and then Bond is, you know, now he has reason to believe that this Columbo guy really is trying to kill him. You know, inspire fear and paranoia, but don't kill him. But what happens instead is that Kriegler shoots at him, and then he keeps shooting at him, and then he chases him, and then like 17 guys are chasing him, and it really feels like they do want to kill him. Where really Kristatos' plan is to let Bond go ahead and kill his rival. So you could maybe argue on one hand, it's like, okay, I guess maybe he would benefit either way from killing Bond, but really, with this whole deceptive plot, you really just need to shoot at Bond and have this, what looks to be an assassination attempt, but really it was just to frighten him, scare him towards Columbo, and then have him kill Columbo. And then the producers are like, yeah, but we need a really long ski scene that goes on and on and on and has all the, and then we need drunk guy to jump up again and go,
Oh,
you know, third appearance. This third appearance.
Yeah.
There's also right before drunk guy pops up. That's another little funny quirk. The stunt guy says the bike drives by, a guy's holding a cake. He very obviously quickly turns and just slams it in a guy's face.
You watch that in
the
slow-mo, and you can tell somebody called action. They turn and they just right in this guy's
Slam it
face.
into his face.
I don't have as much a problem with that as you do, I guess, because I just look at it as Kristatos is trying to limit the amount of people that are onto his plan to begin with. Because he knows he's going to have to get the ATAC. But he also is like, how do I kill two birds with one stone? How do I get rid of Columbo and also make a killing off the Russians? Oh, I'll play the British Secret Service like any other villains have before and make them believe that they're helping the good guys out when really they're helping me out.
It seems like a bonus plan versus backup plan.
I
Kind of
guess.
a deal. Either way it goes, we either kill Bond, it works, or we don't kill Bond and Bond kills my enemy.
I mean, there's the evidence to suggest that, like, no, this was literally they were pulling plot elements from another story where this does happen, where the character you think is the good guy the entire time, the informant, is actually the villain who's tricking the good guy into thinking that this guy is the villain. Instead of it being where it feels like to be like a very lazily like, oh shit, like we had a really cool opening moment in the movie to get Bond into this story. How do we address this so we can fix later things that we wanted to do with the movie? Oh, we'll do this quick fix patch where it's like, oh, he just needed his shuttle back. Oh, I sent the bullet. Like things like that. Yep. But like with this, it's different in that like you could see it as it makes the character more interesting because it's like, oh, well, he's a mastermind. Like he has figured all this idea out of how he's going to best this. If I had an argument as to like on your behalf is to say like this weekends the movie is that it is at times can be confusing a little bit. Like it does get a little like Nan says, it is a little confusing, but I mean, I think this movie overall is much more solid than many of the other Bond films for sure.
So you have they meet up with Kristatos, who, because the only lead at that point that Bond has is he has the photo of Locke, the assassin Locke, who paid the Cuban assassin
let's start back before
to kill.
Let's start before that.
So Melina's
before he
parents.
Meets Locke.
So Melina's parents get offed.
And why are they off though?
I actually really love that moment. Like
that scene's great.
When she breaks the fourth wall, it just works.
Yeah.
It just works. Because she nails it. She nails that look.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so you're saying
like,
even before that. So
kill these guys.
Yeah. So before that, Gogol says, I've already contacted our guy in Greece. And having seen the movie, we know that's Kristatos. So he contacted Kristatos and he's getting things into motion. The British government was working with Melina's parents in order to find the ATAC, right? So we have the Brits and we have the Russians, and below the Russian head we have Kristatos, and then below the Brits we have the Melina's parents, and these two forces are already trying to find the ATAC. So what we see though in real time is that Melina shows up on the boat. Hey everybody, I'm back, and she's dropped off by the Cuban assassin, who then, when he swings back around, they're waving like, hey, bye. Like he's making one final pass. And right when he pulls the trigger, he does this lip quiver that just looks like he's getting off in his pants a little bit because he's committing murder. He's like, it's so weird. So her parents get killed. She swears revenge, and then Bond is briefed. They're aware of the Cuban assassin, so Bond goes to see the Cuban assassin, and while he's there, Locke is there to pay him off for the murder. But Melina intervenes and kills their only lead, who is the Cuban assassin. So Locke hilariously steals the money back and runs off. But Bond saw him, so through the identigraph.
Why don't you try the identigraph?
They're able to figure out who that guy was. Okay, it's Locke.
Now reported working for Greek smugglers.
Minister of Defense is like, Bond, you f***ed this all up. You're an asshole. And, as usual, Bond's like, how many times have I saved the world? But okay, Minister of Defense, I guess you're cool. And Bond says, if you would have read this part of my report, I said, I saw the guy paying the assassin you told me to go look into. If we look into that guy, maybe we'll figure out all this business with the ATAC. And what does the Minister of Defense say?
I don't follow.
I don't follow. That doesn't make sense. Like, what do you not grasp? And then he follows that up by going,
if we could identify that someone.
Why don't you try the identigraph?
Yes, sir.
Well, get cracking, 007.
What the f*** was that scene? I don't get it.
Oh, no. Why don't you get cracking, Bond? So why does he do that? And where is M? Where is M?
We're going to save that for the end. There's a reason.
Anyway, so Bond identifies Locke.
The Italian Secret Service think that he is at this moment in Cortina.
So then they go there so they can talk to Kristatos, and he's like, do you know this guy? He's like, oh yeah, that's Columbo's right-hand man. Columbo's the Dove.
In the Greek underworld, he is known as the Dove. A very sick joke.
So then at that point, Kristatos in his deceptiveness is having Locke wear the dove on his jacket. He's wearing that dove pin. So everything that Locke is doing, Bond is then attributing to Columbo. So, and this is what I'm saying, is that Kristatos wants Bond to kill Columbo, even though he, why can't he do it himself? But I mean, if you're going to hire an assassin, second-handedly hiring James Bond is a pretty great thing if you can pull it off. But my whole point is that then all they keep doing is trying to kill Bond. And it's not, like I said, it's not like just shoot at him and make him think that Columbo's doing or Columbo's behind it, or have Locke just kind of keep prodding him a little bit towards Columbo or lead him there. It's like they're legitimately trying to kill him. Like even when Kriegler, in that amazing bike crash that Kriegler has, and then he stands up and he's about to shoot Bond in the face with his rifle, and it's bent, so he throws it at him, and then, who doesn't love him throwing the motorcycle at him? Like, it's the greatest thing ever.
That's
what I mean. Like, that's what I mean. He even tried to kill him with a motorcycle.
Okay, I found the linchpin in your argument that's going to make things a lot more confusing as well as make more sense. So,
bring it.
Krieger doesn't work for Kristatos. He works for the KGB.
It's Kriegler. Like, seriously, dude.
Whatever.
You're
Kriegler.
cracking me up this episode. I don't want to correct you because it's hilarious. I just need the audience to know that you haven't said a single word correctly.
That's fine.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No heroin.
Yeah, he covers his face too. No heroin.
No heroin. No heroin. So yeah, what makes it more confusing is he works
for the Russians. He
works for the Russians. He does not work for Kristatos. And we know that because at the very end of the movie, whatever the f his name is, I don't give a shit.
Do go on, please.
Doesn't matter. Basically, the East German skier.
Yeah.
Biathlonist.
Olympic.
I don't think that's how you say that.
Biathlete.
Biathlonist.
For you, biathlonist. For me and the rest of the world, biathlete.
Listen, this is a very iconic episode, okay?
I will deliver it and return with the money. The voice of the KGB.
He works for the KGB, and he works, and like that's the part of it that makes sense. That you're like, it's confusing, but it works. Like he works for the KGB. He doesn't actually work for the other guy.
Do the hockey players work for the Russians then?
Maybe they're the same guys. We never know. The hockey players don't make any goddamn sense.
Some headcanon works then.
One of my biggest gripes about this movie is that they didn't try to kill him with a curling team. That is the only thing they didn't try, and they could have succeeded.
That would have been great.
Like a curl with like knives coming off of it, and just
Dude, no, you capture Bond, you melt him in ice up to his neck, and then you play curling
with knives.
So you have all these rocks, you're like smashing him in the face.
How is he gonna get out of that one? So what you mentioned, I think we even forgot to mention this, but you were mentioning how this is very On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I don't know if you said this or not, but the bobsled thing, right? Like they one up the bobsled scene with the motorcycle and the skiing through the
John
bobsled.
Glen being like, "F you, Peter. Your bobsled scene sucked. It was embarrassing. I had to edit that. It sucked."
So I'm gonna throw my ranking out real quick. So this is where I would rank this movie. I think it goes under On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but above Thunderball is where I would put this movie. I think this movie has a smart plot. I think the characters are all competent, and I actually enjoy everything. The things that kind of tear the movie down for me is like, it is a little confusing at times. I don't like what's her face, who's
BB. Get her out. Get the hockey guys out.
Charlie, I know what you're gonna say because you gave me that little winky face about the little pedophile moment. But the very end of the movie, when all said and done, and the ATAC has been thrown and everything, and then BB like comes rushing and she comes rushing to the aid of Columbo, and the Columbo gives him that look like, huh?
Yeah, Columbo's all right with that.
Seems though BB has a new sponsor.
The moment where he literally gives her nuts. Visual metaphor, that's all I gotta say. He dumps it right into her young hand. She really doesn't serve any purpose.
No.
The only purpose
Not
I can
really.
think of is he denies her. Like he's not.
So Bond has some line.
It's like she's only there to give him reason to be in the Alps. Like they were like, we need a reason why he's in the Alps.
Yeah.
She's the reason why he's in the Alps.
It's a pretty weak reason.
Because let's follow it through real quick. So he's like, this is, she's gonna win the gold medal, and that'll be the best day of my life. This is her coach. And so then after that, it's like, okay, she clearly has a little crush on Bond. Will you escort her to the biathlon? Okay, sure. And then at the biathlon, Bond says, okay, I gotta go. Like, even though he agreed to escort her, for some reason, he's like, okay, I have an appointment.
She does say, come back. She does say, come and see me before you leave. She does say that.
He leaves because he has an appointment. So what happens is he leaves her, then he has a 20-minute snow chase scene, and then he immediately goes and meets up with her. So it looks like he left her so he could have an action scene and then go meet up with her.
Yeah.
There's two. That's
really
only one of two moments in this movie that kind of tear the movie down for me, and the other one is the keel haul scene, right? Or the knee haul scene, or whatever you want to call it.
Keel haul.
With the shark.
Yeah, keel haul.
Because the writer's like, all right, we got to set this up. So Melina's going to leave her oxygen tank by the ruins. Why? I don't know, but she's going to do it. So she leaves it by the ruins. Great. And then Bond and her get on the boat, and they're like, we got to find the ATAC. We know where the St. George was at.
Yeah.
Your father was looking for it. We have to find it. It must be in his notes. Oh, you can read his notes. Great. Read his notes. Also, we're going to throw in the Nautilus or whatever it was called in this. Was it Poseidon? Something like that? I can't remember.
Yeah.
We're going to throw in this
Neptune,
cool mini sub because, because we want to keep, it was the Neptune. Thank you. So we want to keep up with the time. So the Neptune, this is really cool piece of technology now that we have. We can go underwater in these mini subs. Great. We're going to put it in the movie. Cool. So we'll use the Nautilus, the aqua little sub. Okay, cool. We have that little battle, which, by the way, I love that they set it up.
JIM diving equipment for salvage work at depths of more than 300 feet.
We see the suit when they said no heroin.
No.
How did that suit survive that explosion? Unless they had a second.
No. That scene's before it. So that scene is before that scene.
Yeah.
It's
so how did the suit survive that explosion? That's what I'm saying.
No. We see the suit in the warehouse, and then we're underwater.
Yeah, and then the guys in the suit down there, the whole warehouse blows up.
It does. It does.
So how the hell does that suit survive
different and significantly larger explosion?
But you could say that it's just to set up the fact that they have these suits, like they're using them for the smuggling operation. So he has multiples of those suits. So then he goes and gets the ATAC out. They have that little underwater battle, which, by the way, some of those scenes were actually filmed without any water. They were dry because Melina the actress couldn't go underwater herself. They use some special techniques to do that, to make it look like they're actually underwater, but they're not. Anyway, so they have that scene, they get the ATAC, they come back underwater. Kristatos.
Keep going.
Chris is up there, gets the ATAC from them, puts them underwater, and then they do the little bit with the knots, and that one guy falls off the boat, gets eaten by sharks, even though Bond is bleeding his guts out.
Yeah, and then that's when our little setup with the oxygen tank pays off.
And then we go back to that same boat that they started on when they're like, okay, now we got to figure out what the ATAC's at. It just feels like the scene repeats itself a little bit. And they do it twice in the movie, like you were talking about, like he leaves BB and then he comes back to BB.
Yeah.
And then stuff happens.
The tank at the bottom of the water, though, is fine in my book because had she just left it in a random place on the ocean floor, you'd be like, that's a little convenient. But it's this temple that she's trying to resurrect.
Careful, James. It's 5,000 years old.
You leave your tools at a work site. It
doesn't
really trigger me at all.
I think it's not the fact
why
that
not?
she leaves her stuff there.
It's a little awkward.
Those things are heavy, and so just kind of
I was
leaving
wondering,
it,
right as that scene happened, I remember thinking, right as she took her tank off, put it down for no real apparent reason. I was like, why? Why the fuck are you leaving it there?
If she was a Dolph humanoid, she wouldn't need that in the first place.
It brings up a bigger issue.
yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Where do you guys stand? Do you think that's a fair assessment, or do you think the movie should be lower? But I think it's just a very solid spy thriller, and I think it should be praised for that, but I do think it does have its shortcomings where I don't think it's the best Bond movie, but I do think it is definitely a contender as being better than all the previous Moore films, for sure.
I'm pretty much right with you. I was kind of 5 to 8, 9 somewhere in that range, which I think is where we are. If we're
That's a
putting
big
this
range.
above,
Pick a number.
That's a huge range.
if we're putting this above On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it would be
On Her Majesty's Secret Service is currently 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm somewhere right there with those two, interchangeable. It felt a lot like the same film, kind of like Charlie said earlier, a lot of copy and paste, and we're trying the same things, except with a new director, new producer.
That's not. I mean, it's also better technology. I mean, that movie was filmed in the '60s. This is the early '80s. It's. I mean, we got better technology now.
One really strong point to this film for me was Columbo.
Yeah,
and I want to bring back our love of Karim Bey from Russia with Love.
Karim Bey.
Like an actual somewhat bad guy in his own right, but yet aids Bond towards good, who's charismatic, popular, funny.
But no heroin.
He has those but no heroin.
No heroin.
But I love Columbo for that, and like the whole play of the dynamic of those two and his parts in this movie. He kind of brought fun and lightness to kind of that whole part.
He's such a big character. He's so much fun. And you're my friend. Like he's so intense.
I love it.
And we don't have any other allies that I can think of where you think they're a bad guy and then they become best friends. When you see him walking in that monk uniform, you're like, dude, I love you.
Yeah,
I'm glad
that's
you
perfect.
just walked back into my heart, bro.
Brilliant.
We have had so many awesome allies, but they usually just start as allies. I really love the scene right after the beach showdown where the guys with the white dove all kidnap him and they're just treating him like shit. And they're really making Bond think like he's in trouble. And Columbo doesn't know. He's like, what am I going to do with you, Bond? And he plays the tape.
What should I do with you?
You cannot just arrest him. You must find a different way. You may have to kill him.
Technically, you're trying to kill me. I just want to tell you, though, you've been lied to. And Bond, to his credit, is like, bullshit.
Why should I believe you?
And then, again, I mean, all he has to do is give him the gun, but he's like, I'm going to give you your gun, and I'm going to take you to some proof. We're going to check this out together. And then he even says, and then you and I are going to be best friends. Like, he really is
going to be best friends.
He's great.
He might be too great. He kind of outshines, like, the bad guys in the movie.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah,
he does.
But it's definitely a good thing. He had to be like super Karim Bey in order for us to, move over to his side in terms of allyship. Because even Columbo is kind of running his own deception, right? Where he's pretending like him and the Countess are at odds, but he does that so that Bond will then be like, oh, hey, this is an in with my supposed enemy's girlfriend. I'm going to go pump her for information.
Then pump her for information.
It was a very amusing performance between you and the owner of this. What exactly did Columbo whisper to you?
That you're a spy. To find out more about you.
But then on that note, that's kind of what Kristatos is doing. Like maybe really the only reason for BB's existence is that she kind of operates as a front. She kind of makes Kristatos look like this good guy, look at this selfless guy helping this 16-year-old girl win a gold medal. And then, turns out he slaps her in the face when he feels like it.
You could go to hell.
So Kristatos is trying to make himself look good to Bond. Meanwhile, Columbo is trying to make himself look bad, at least at first, so he can figure out what Kristatos is up to.
You brought up Karim Bey, but I was thinking more of Draco from On Her Majesty's Secret Service because they feel similar too because they're both criminal heads of criminal organizations that kind of aren't totally bad. No heroin.
No heroin.
I love that line. It's my favorite line in the movie.
Yeah, diamonds, gold.
I should have
fucking
brought pistachios. I'm so pissed.
I know.
I didn't buy pistachios for this. I just ate them.
The sweet chili pistachios.
But Charlie, do you think between 6 and 7? Do you think between On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Thunderball? That's kind of where I gravitate towards.
I honestly, with all the similarities between Secret Service and For Your Eyes Only, I really would love to pit them directly against each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to put it above Dr. No. I think sitting at 5 for me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Because I do think that the movie has these it raises these certain questions, and like you said, like with some headcanon Like, well, Kriegler working for the Russians means that maybe he doesn't really need Kristatos' blessing in order to kill Bond. And, you know, maybe Gogol was like, yeah, go ahead and take out, if you see Bond, just like take him out. He's going to try to get Bond is going to try to screw up this ATAC thing. And like Gogol says in the beginning,
there will be no direct involvement, but if it comes on the market, we should not lose such a remarkable opportunity.
All the way down to that moment that Bond shares with Gogol in the end, like, you know, it's great. That moment is great. But I think directly comparing On Her Majesty's Secret Service and For Your Eyes Only, I think with all the similarities the movies have, those two, I think For Your Eyes Only does everything that Her Majesty's Secret Service does better. I think it takes all the things that Secret Service did and it one-ups it.
But see, I don't agree with that.
Well,
assessment.
because you're always going to have a boner for Tracy, but like, I think Melina's got a better story than Tracy. So
I like Melina more.
I do like
Tracy.
Melina, but I think my issue with that comparison again, and I've said this before. One of the reasons I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service stands out from many of the Bond films is that they found the emotional Bond story. This one doesn't have emotional Bond story.
But everybody here except you thinks that emotional story is surface
outside
level.
Of this.
Nobody cares about anybody outside of here. It's so surface level and lame and reaching for some kind of emotionality that's just not there. As opposed to Melina's story is more fleshed out and has a little more weight to it than this, like, Bond is with this weird damaged woman and then they have a love montage and now suddenly they're in love, you know, even down to little things like when Bond lets Tracy drive the car. That's just not Bond at all. In this movie, they correct that.
You don't mind if I drive, do you?
John Glenn went, F that. I had Bond go, hey, I'm going to drive the car. And Bond jumps in the driver's seat because that's what Bond would do. Bond sitting there while Tracy's driving the car is... And again, for the progressives out there, we're not talking about progressivism. We're talking about a character named James Bond who would never let a woman drive a car for him, let alone anybody, dick or vagina or otherwise. That's Bond. This movie takes all these things that happened in Secret Service and does it better. Better tits, better water, better. No, but even
no heroin.
No
heroin.
And that's where it'd be fun to just pit the two against each other, but I think it does everything so much better that I even want to challenge Dr. No.
I don't think it's better than Dr. No, though. I think one of the problems with this movie, as much as I like the spy thrillerness and how it's grounded, it's not very clear of a movie. It is. Yeah. You do have to watch it a couple times, and it is kind of forgettable, unfortunately. I think that's the sad part is this movie, because it preceded Moonraker, and most people will remember Moonraker, as much as we want to throw it at the bottom, like, and it's thrown for a bottom for a very good reason. Like, looking back at these movies, comparing all these movies in a way, it's in that spot for a reason. But unfortunately, I think For Your Eyes Only has the problem of just not being memorable just enough, and I think a lot of it has to do with its clarity, like some of the plot elements. I mean, Charlie,
are you
went
talking
on a whole
about
thing.
like the bad guy thing, like specifically?
The whole bad guy thing is, I mean, you were even saying like it's like this is confusing, and then it makes it even more confusing when you throw in the fact that like the guy that you were going on about, it's like, well, he works for this guy. I'm like, Charlie, he works for the Russians, and like that's why he's after him, and that's why that scene doesn't make sense.
I just think Kristatos, after he becomes the bad guy, after he is, I don't think it's that convoluted. I kind of personally, I saw it coming when it was going on. And he's like, oh, it seems like a trap. I'm like, it seems too convenient. It seems set up. But after he becomes the bad guy, he becomes very forgettable. Everything he does is not very dramatic. There's no very good plot or design to kill Bond. He just runs up to a temple on a hill and just dies very easily. There's no... I don't know. That kind of ruins it for me. There's never a defined bad guy, and he's never very much in charge.
Well, even we said it's like where this movie becomes where Bond is just kind of in the midst of this rivalry between these two other guys.
Exactly. It seems like it's a bigger picture than a single bad guy.
And it's not Bond's necessarily fight. And so at the end of the movie, it's like
Bond doesn't even finish the guy, right?
Columbo like these guys are fighting.
Mm-hmm. Bond gets the final victory. Like
the detente.
I know. Who doesn't love the moment where he whips the ATAC off the mountain.
Нет!
That moment is
But that just
fabulous.
shows how unimportant that device is. He's like,
well, he couldn't keep it because he would have gotten gunned down.
They
And then
need
he
to
knows that
destroy it.
Gogol and him, yeah.
The whole reason this all happened was because the ATAC guy himself couldn't even blow it up.
then why didn't he just destroy it on the sub? Why didn't he leave it in place? Why did he take it with him then?
Just throw the detonator on the ATAC instead of the guy in the suit.
The detonator was still sitting there. He could have
I
armed the
did
detonator.
think about that when I watched the movie. I was like, why didn't he put the detonator
Why didn't he just
on
destroy
the
it then and there and
thing?
leave
He was
it
gonna
at the
destroy it.
I
base
thought
of the
he had
fucking
to
ocean?
recover it.
Why did he have to bring it back?
I don't think Bond was expecting Kristatos to suddenly just show up out of
This
nowhere.
device
you know?
just seems very like,
Like, okay, let's put it this way. Let's
Destroy
put it this way.
get it back, whatever.
Let's put it this way. If the ship is sinking, your orders are to destroy it. Just like with the Lotus. You know, the Lotus explodes rather than let bad guys take a hold of it. Yeah. If you can recover it, if it's possible, because you can assume it's like the Lektor, it's like it's probably a very expensive and unique machine. So if you can recover it, great. But when the bad guys have the upper hand on you, you have to destroy it.
They didn't. They had a helicopter, the unarmed Russian general, and one armed henchman.
Well, that's the problem.
No, he could have ran the other way. They had they had the base.
No, Bond was f***ed. Like Bond was f***ed.
He was in the situation. Yeah,
Better
no,
to destroy it.
I agree with Charlie. I think what I like about the end of this movie, which it was kind of missing in the last couple of with the Tom Mankiewicz movies, a lot of them ended up being Bond has to save the Bond girl. Like that was the story for a lot of the end of them is like, why does Bond have to go to the bad guy? He has to save the Bond girl. And this one, it's like, no. That's not the reason why Bond has to. I'm giving
Scale
the movie
the mountain
points
and all
in this.
that.
He has to go up.
He's
the
not
mountain.
going
He
up there
has
to get good night.
No. He's not getting BB. He's getting the ATAC, which I enjoy that aspect of it. But I don't see it being better than Dr. No. I don't see it better as Honor Majesty's Secret Service. And
honestly though, like if I'm like, because in the same style that I have my Golden Gun bias, you have this odd emotional connection to Secret Service, but I think this movie.
I'm not the only one who has that odd emotional connection to, though.
Not in the world, but in this fucking Zoom meeting, you do. Like, most people.
I supported McCurdy in a way.
I'm not saying I don't like the movie,
I
but
don't
if
have
we're
an
picking
irrational
which
love
one
of
is
it, but
better,
I'm not
I
saying
think
McCurdy does
this one doesn't have an entire sequence where Bond completely undermines his own mission because he can't control his penis. Like this one at least has like a smarter.
That's the point of that movie specifically.
But that theme makes the movie weak,
and that's what makes the movie interesting.
No, it makes the movie weak.
It doesn't make the movie weak. Just because he's in love with the woman does not make the movie weak.
Because Bond is suddenly questioning whether or not he wants to work for the government anymore
After
for
five
no
movies
reason.
Where it's been the same thing over and over again,
But for like
why
no
is
reason.
that such a problem?
Because it's not fully fleshed out.
Well, what do you need? What do you need it to be fleshed out? Like, what is it that you
guys? I don't know why we're arguing for your
Scott,
eyes
we're
only
arguing,
versus
Scott, we're arguing
Honor Majesty's
the movie.
Secret Service.
Scott,
Hold on.
That's the point of the show is you have to argue.
No, I know.
You have to argue the previous
Charlie's trying
points.
to argue that this is above Dr. No. We need to argue.
And I'm telling
for
you,
your eyes only versus Dr. No, not Honor Majesty's Secret Service. 3 of us have agreed it's above Honor Majesty's Secret Service. You yourself put it above that, Ryan.
No.
I didn't. I put it between Thunderball and Honor.
He's got it under.
Earlier you said it was above
Secret Service and Thunderball. That's what I said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so
I
my whole thing is that I think it's not only above Secret Service, but potentially above Dr. No, and I keep leaning that way because, you know, again, I think that these movies are starting to surpass the older stuff. And this movie isn't as, you know, like I'm always going to have my From Russia with Love boner where because we've gone through Live and Let Die, because we've gone through Spy Who Loved Me, because we've gone through Moonraker, for audience purposes, the precedent has been set that these Bond movies are just a bunch of fun, zany chases and assassination scenes. So like I said, I think the movie would be a lot smarter if they would have just tried to kill Bond a little bit, but then let him go. But Bond thinks he got away, but maybe then Bond's like, I got away a little too easy. You know what I mean? Like, that's what a smarter movie would have done. But again, because these Roger Moore movies have set a precedent of you're going to get your tub of popcorn, and you're going to watch a chase scene, and then you're going to watch an assassination scene, like a sneaky assassination scene, and then you're going to watch a ridiculous one with a knife guy or a hockey team or whatever. Like, they're doing these things to cater to audience expectation rather than to their story, as opposed to in From Russia with Love, Bond gets the Lektor, and then he faces a bunch of assassins, right? Up until then, you have Red Grant kind of being his guardian angel to make sure he gets it. And I do think that would have been more fun in the style of From Russia with Love if Kristatos was misleading Bond into thinking that Columbo was the bad guy, so that Bond would then retrieve the ATAC and then be like, thanks for that, Bond. You know what I mean? Like, because Bond has those instructions on how to retrieve the ATAC, right? So Kristatos could have maybe done it himself. He says,
"Thank you, Mr. Bond. You have saved us the trouble of disarming it."
But wouldn't it have been just a little bit more interesting if Bond was, or some MI6 or British agent was the only one able to actually release the ATAC, so then Kristatos had to manipulate him, right? If he had no other option but to trick a Brit into breaking the ATAC free. But my whole point is that if this was the sequel to From Russia with Love, they would have done all of these things, I'm sure. But now at this point, because the franchise has gone on for so long, it's like, well, we need to have these chase scenes. We know they're not. We know this hockey assassination thing is kind of stupid, but like that's what audiences are paying a ticket, a price of admission for, you know. So, but all the same, for me, it's just like hands down above Secret Service. It just hands down is. I'm just eyeing that fifth spot above Dr. No.
Yeah, to me, man, I'm somewhere right in the middle, I guess. Honor Majesty's Secret Service and For Your Eyes Only are almost interchangeable to me.
My immediate impression still stands.
Nans, where would you put it?
Yeah, at the beginning of the episode, I was meh on the movie. Like, I will say it's a clean movie, like relatively speaking. But I would say the plot, the script, they're both kind of like okay. The bad guys are okay. It's not a whole lot of standout. Like Roger Moore's portrayal of Bond is really good in this movie. We get a pretty strong Bond girl, but besides that, everything else for me is kind of just like okay, average maybe. So
Columbo.
I came in thinking either right above or right below Thunderball is where I was going to put it.
Okay.
And I'm still kind of thinking somewhere in there.
Okay. So we're split.
Well, I think three of us
me and Nans
are
were kind of in the same boat. Whereas
7,
I was like, it's
right?
above
And
Thunderball
Charlie's
for
at
sure.
5. So Charlie's arguing between the man with the golden gun and Dr. No. Sounds like me, McCurdy, and Scott were all between Thunderball and Honor Majesty's Secret Service. So number 7.
Well, I said For Your Eyes Only could be above Honor Majesty's Secret Service. They're interchangeable for me.
Okay.
Again, it's remarkable how similar they are.
I think For Your Eyes Only does a lot of things better than Honor Majesty's Secret Service, but I will go back to saying, and for all of you watching, please rewatch the old episode of Honor Majesty's Secret Service, that I enjoyed the emotional part of that movie. I did. I enjoyed the emotional side of something different to Bond. So I enjoy these two movies for two different things. And I can't, I guess, necessarily decide which one I like more for whatever purpose. It's one of those things that when you're watching it on the day, it depends what mood you're in, you know?
To simplify what you're going with is, I kind of think to myself, what would I rather rewatch?
Yeah.
And I'd rather rewatch Majesty's Secret Service than this movie. And that's not just because I just watched this movie and it's been a little bit since I've seen Majesty's Secret Service, but
I mean, and that's where I'm on the opposite end, where I'm like, if I'm gonna rewatch one of them, I'd rather rewatch For Your Eyes Only. And I see what McCurdy means with it being a little more forgettable. But if you're comparing the two of them directly, I wrote down just a couple points because, like I said, all the stuff I already mentioned where they have their similarities, I think it surpasses it.
I think so.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
So with like the between our like playing in the our playing in the snow stuff, I think it's just done better in this one. Our whole Columbo Draco thing, I think Columbo is just leagues beyond him.
And that's
I think the
strong point.
Our revenge tale for Melina is more fleshed out and naturally placed than this. Again, agree or disagree, but I think Tracy's love affair is just forced. There's just no reason why Bond is just so drawn to this chick, other than he's trying to use her for her dad's sake, and then later she proves herself, and that's great. But it's just so forced, and this whole thing of Bond struggling with his like personal life versus work life just comes out of nowhere and is not fully fleshed out. If Bond quit and then went off to do his own thing, that'd be fine. But it's like he quits for 10 minutes. He just throws a little tantrum and then he's right back to working for the Queen. And then again, that leads to the whole Bond never sacrifices the mission to pursue women foolishly. In fact, in this one, everything he's dealing with a chick, he's doing it specifically for the mission.
Phoebe wants to know if you would escort her, Mr. Bond. I would feel better if there were someone with her.
Well, I'd be delighted.
I mean, the whole thing with the Countess, she just so happens to be pretty cool. She's like a fellow Brit and everything, and she's kind of like Bond. She's like a female equivalent somewhat of Bond, where she's hiding all the time, pretending to be somebody else, just like a spy is, And so Columbo is like, go bang this guy and figure out who he is, and they kind of have a little connection, and then she's immediately brutally murdered, and then Bond's is like, bye.
Goodbye, Countess.
And then the ATAC ending is, I think, just great. I think just that simple visual of the ATAC flying over the mountain and exploding is better than a fist fight on a bobsled. I'll just always opt for an ending that isn't just a simple punch for punch, but something that's a little bit more unique and specific to the plot.
Let's date on, comrade. You don't have it. I don't have it.
I will say, though, my one argument for Secret Service is that the mountain raid in Secret Service is so much better. And it's two things. It's that when that Bond theme kicks in, when all the helicopters are surrounding Blofeld's compound, and then I really think that George Lazenby handles a machine gun really well. The guy is so awesome when he's sliding across the ice and he's blowing off rounds, and then when he's like pursuing Blofeld and he like freezes and plays like that whole sequence is great, but overall, just with all these similarities they have, I think For Your Eyes Only just one-ups all those little things, and that all adds up to just a better movie for me, rather than, I mean, like Scott said, go watch the Secret Service episode. And I get that a lot of people in the world love it because it has this emotionality to it, but I just don't buy it. I think in the same way, McCurdy, like in the same way that you and some other people have commented, like, oh yeah, you're really reaching for that story stuff in The Man with the Golden Gun. But I'm like, I disagree. I think all of that stuff is there in the movie, and the stuff with Tracy is forced. I cry like a bitch when she gets shot in the fucking face by Burke, Bunk, Brunt, whatever in the end.
Yeah.
But all the same, I always said, as soon as she gets shot in the face, you have your little cry moment, and then what do they do with the soundtrack? You're walking out of the theater. You were ready to walk out in tears, and then they're like, but at the end of the day, we have to remember this isn't some drama. This is a Bond movie. So even after his wife gets brutally murdered, they play the Bond theme, because they know what it is at the end of the day. So just for all those reasons, I think this movie surpasses it.
Yeah, I disagree.
Because you're emotionally biased. That's fine.
No,
That's
but
fine.
it's not. It's your argument comes down to I can't buy a montage. Like that's what it comes down to because I don't understand where
even
else you're gonna
other than
get,
the montage too. Just why is Bond so into this chick?
Like they even established like the whole. I said in the last episodes that that car chase sequence is a driving force as to Bond being like, oh yeah, this chick's fucking cool. Like
I think it's
why
lame.
am I not with this chick? And then on top of
fact
that, I
that
even
Bond
said in
didn't
the
jump
last
in the
episode,
driver's seat
I'm
is
not done.
lame.
I'm not done.
It's
I'm not
lame.
done talking. You had your moment. I get to talk to my
Go
moment
ahead.
now. So, but that last episode, I even talked about how like that whole movie, the whole movie is about Bond grappling the ideas like, does he still want to keep doing this the rest of his life?
But
And
it's
obviously,
not.
the movie is.
It's really
the
not.
movie is saying no. It is.
There's one scene of that.
It's the whole movie.
There's
and then
one scene
the
of
movie's
that.
also grappling the idea between like, do I have to work within the rules or not? And that's like part of it too, because even the end of the movie, he's like, I can't get my MI6 agents to come and save Tracy. I have to go to her dad, who's a criminal, to go do it myself.
That I agree with.
And so and then on top of that, like we even talked about how like Blofeld's whole plan is like, oh, they're going like, because Patterson's whole argument why he thought the whole plot with him was dumb was because he's like, well, so he's just going to get off scot-free because he changes his coat of arms or whatever it was. But the whole movie is establishing this idea that, yes, the governments are following these rules. And Bond's like, that's fucking bullshit. Like, why are we following these rules? We know these guys are bad guys. We know these guys murder millions of people in the blink of the eye just to make a couple of bucks. Like, we know that for a fact. Why are we following these rules? And that's why he's frustrated in the beginning of the movie, not to mention that he's like been trying to find this guy for 2 years. Yeah. So what I like about Honor Majesty's Secret Service, which is missing from this movie, unfortunately, and for all the points that you said about For Your Eyes Only, I'm saying, like, again, you and I agree. We love all these movies, right? I think just the fact that it's Bond that's handling the weight of the plot of the story as far as the story goes, the emotional part, is in Bond's hands in that movie. That's what elevates it for me. Whereas in this movie, it's not. Every other character is dealing with something that is more interesting than Bond himself. He's just a spectator, or he is an agent in that whole fight. Like he's literally a secret agent in that whole fight. Melina's story is Melina's story. Kristatos versus Columbo, that is their story. But Bond is kind of facilitating in between all of that. And then the only thing he does at the end is throw, which I'm going to say this, like, I know you're like, oh, that's such a great ending. He throws the thing, but it's like the lamest slow-mo, like.
I disagree. I still think it's great.
And then we're supposed to have like some weight to that. Like it's supposed to be like this pivotal
I'm
moment.
not the biggest fan of the ending.
It's supposed to be a pivotal moment that this slow-mo shot of the thing breaking in pieces is supposed to be such a pivotal thing. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, don't get me wrong. I get where like this movie comes at a time at the height of the Cold War. It's a big, and that's a whole thing. But that is the big scope part of the movie, and where I like how Honor Majesty's Secret Service is dealing with more of an emotional internal thing that he is dealing with. And yes, some of it may seem hammy or whatever, but for the time, like I think it really works. I also like you were talking about as a movie as a whole, right? Movie as a whole for Honor Majesty's Secret Service, I think is shot really, really well. I think it is a beautiful movie to watch. I think and even the music is better than I think For Your Eyes Only. I think the way it's shot is better than For Your Eyes Only. There's a lot of reasons I like Honor Majesty's Secret Service just slightly more than For Your Eyes Only. But I do get the comparisons. I do understand where you're like technically on a technical level, the fact that they had a motorcycle going through the bobsled with Bond on a skis, like that looks, I mean, it looks fantastic. I'm not going to argue that it doesn't look fantastic, but that's where we have to question, like, does technological achievements, do they trump the story things? Do they trump like what they could do at the time? And that also goes to like Dr. No, because we're talking about that movie as well. Like, yes, Dr. No doesn't have all the crazy chase scenes and it can only do so much with the story and all the movie, but like at least that movie is very clear. We know it's more of a mystery movie. It's not the same kind of movie. I think just for Free Eyes Only, it's kind of just overall it's a very dry movie with like one really good outstanding performance with Topol, but the rest of the movie is like it's good. I don't hate it, but I don't I could make some remarks about BB, but BB's also kind of there to make a joke about Moore's age in a way too. 'Cause it's like you have this really young girl and Bond's looking old, and at least we gave him something.
Well, what we were leading to before was that BB, if you just strip her out of the movie, literally the only thing you're missing, correct me if I'm wrong, you're just missing like maybe a reason to hate Kristatos more, but also there's just that moment where Bond says to her trainer,
"All right, we'll help you if you help us."
Yeah.
Did they really need her help? Like they didn't really need her help anyway. I think if you stripped her out, you would just have less of the snow stuff. But on that note, though, let me keep talking about weird things that like I just don't understand about this movie. Like, for example, when we're in the snow and he gets away from Kriegler, and then Kriegler meets up with Locke, and Locke and Kriegler are like, "Hey, there's Bond. Let's go after him." So they all get in that elevator with Bond, and here's how they laid out: Bond's at the top of the ski jump. We're gonna force him to go down, so Bond can't go back. He has to go down the hill. Right? And they put Kriegler at the bottom, and Deadshot Kriegler is going to shoot Bond as he's going off the jump. Okay, how's Bond going to get out of this? Well, then they have Charles Dance get on the little side slope, and just when Bond goes, Charles Dance goes out and punches him.
Yeah.
And like I said, it'd be one thing if they were doing this to again, mislead Bond so that he's like, man, this Columbo guy really wants me dead. But you're looking at Kriegler, and it's like Kriegler really wants this guy dead. So once again, hang on, back up. Like you said, McCurdy, if Kriegler's working for the Russians, and all they needed was a scene where Kristatos was like, okay, the Russians want Bond dead, but I want to keep him alive. But they couldn't do that because that would give away the twist that Columbo was the good guy instead of the bad guy. So you know what I'm saying? So Bond has to go down the ski slope, and Kriegler's going to shoot him, and then they have Charles Dance come out and just like punch him, and then that leads to Kriegler not shooting because they both go off at the same time, and then that allows Bond to get away. Like if they had that little moment where they have Kristatos say, "Yeah, my men were ordered not to kill you," and Kriegler wanted you dead, or even if Kriegler just said, "You promised me that Bond would die," and he's like, "Bond will die when the time comes," like when they're having their little powwow. Like that would have been great. So I agree that it has these questions and maybe a little you need some headcanon to get past it, but I don't think it stops the movie from working. When it comes down to it, again, it's just all those things that Secret Service did. I think this just does it better, and I don't necessarily care that Bond isn't the emotional center. In fact, I think it kind of lends to Bond to not have him be the emotional center and allow Melina to have that. Like in Secret Service, like I totally get what you mean. Like here's what the movie is trying to do, but I still think this is what it was trying to do.
But it doesn't.
Had it achieved that would have been fantastic. I just don't think. I think it. I like I said in that episode, it's like Peter Hunt was like, I'm gonna take this Superman, Sean Connery superhero, and I'm gonna make him a man, like a flawed man, and I'm gonna really aim for this emotional film. I want people crying by the end of the movie. It wanted to have this emotional weight, and it really went for it. I gotta hand it to Peter Hunt for going for it. I just don't think he achieved what he set out to do, and I honestly, if you feel it did, that's where I go, dude. Like, good for you. Like, I would love if I said in that episode, if he would have achieved what I believe he set out to do, this movie probably would have been number one. But I just don't think it achieved it. I think you really have to fill in the gaps in your head to really feel that emotionality. I watch it and I just kind of go, I just don't see this. It's not as fleshed out as what they managed to pull off in the future. It's still kind of stuck in this pre-casino
the
world,
60s.
you know?
I mean, yeah, it's the 60s.
Yeah.
They're
I don't
not
see
allowed to.
that this movie has much emotionality in it either, though.
Well, that's what I'm
Certainly
saying.
not
That's what
more.
we're arguing. I'm saying that Bond not having this emotionality is better, and letting other people have that, not
But
Bond.
I don't think anyone has it. I don't think
Melina.
there's really.
No,
Melina.
Melina wants revenge, but
Melina's
it's,
intro is the only thing where you're like, holy shit, like there's some deep emotion there. But like the rest of the movie, and okay, so this
After
is something
that
I wanted
shot,
to point
yeah, it's
out.
just-
This is something I wanted to point out. Is more of like a tidbit. I don't think it's going to sway anybody as arguments go. But there was at least I think it was Wilson had pointed this out. I was reading, and he had said that originally they wanted to do this whole thing with Melina as far as she is so stuck on revenge, she has no time for Bond. So Bond's trying to get it in, but he can't because she's so focused on her mission. She's so focused on that she won't.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be charmed by Bond. But the movie never plays that. While you're saying that the last movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, is a movie that has a love story that you see doesn't work. This movie is, and it's like they're trying to do a love story. This movie, like, wanted to have a love story, but then decided not to have a love story. So
Yeah.
then at the end, they're like, well, he has to screw the girl. So we'll put it at the end of the movie.
I never get the sense that the only time they even say the word love is when the horse
Carriage
buggy
guy.
guy's like,
Amore,
amore,
amore.
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 But other than that,
Amore.
I never see it
Yeah.
as like Bond's
Yeah.
falling for. Again, it's all Bond love. Like,
yeah. No, I know.
Bond's
what
gonna
you mean,
forget
though.
about her in a week, you know.
Amore, amore.
Amore.
Also, why does she insist on using a crossbow? Is that explained
It's
at some
badass.
point?
I mean,
They I will say this, they just
Weapon of
pulled
choice.
that is from the book. Like the crossbow is something they pulled from the book.
badass.
But I will say that the advantage of it, and you see it in the end of the movie, is that you don't hear a
Yeah.
crossbow versus a gun.
You know, like I think Nance is saying, hey, he doesn't really feel too connected to the character. Obviously, I mean, I think we all love Columbo, right? I mean, Nance, do you have some affection for Columbo?
He's great.
I think that when it comes to, like, maybe Luigi could have been turned up a bit.
It seems like that hockey thing is just to make sense of Luigi dying at some point.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the only thing we get out of it. Because, like I said, if you just get rid of BB, you would lose all the stuff in the snow. And I honestly think that not all, but the snow level of the movie, the chapter, is the weakest part. That's where I kind of look forward to getting through that to get back to, you know, all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty long.
And yeah, and include, like, but I will say though, if it's all worth it for one thing, it's worth it for.
Yes, well, you get your clothes on. and I'll buy you an ice cream.
Which, on that note, I want to point out what my favorite thing about Roger Moore in his just general performance as Bond. I don't know if it's, I assume that it's just a Roger Moore-ism more than it's a Bond-ism, but he has this thing that you can only call the Roger Moore eye roll, which is the way he'll deliver his sarcastic lines is he's scanning his eyes across the horizon.
You're only my second mission, you know. My first was Baines, the agent who was killed.
Relief to know I'm next in line for the same kind of aid.
I've lost my charm!
Not from where I'm standing.
I have a message for you.
I think you just delivered it.
You know, you seem to be right, 007.
Thank you.
It's a highly toxic nerve.
He's like, well, Q, I mean, I guess you're kind of a bitch. You know, like he's always moving his eyes. He's rolling them. And in this one, in the ice cream line, he does it like 6 times. He's like, well, you put on your clothes and I'll buy you an ice cream. Like, and it's such a fun, sarcastic element to Roger Moore's Bond. And it's like his go-to move, you know? And it goes to show that the guy just has that camera presence, you know? Because that's what being on camera is about, is it's like understanding your presence within this. You know, they'll be like, how much of me do you see? Okay. You know, like, because it's a dance with a camera. So he just has that kind of comedic control to just master these fun little moments. And that's what I was saying before, where it's like chicken and the egg, right? Like every one of Moore's movies feel the same, regardless of the director. And is that the direction, or is that just Moore's presence as the comedic Bond is just that potent?
I think it really just comes down to with Moore as far as his. I mean, we talked about the whole pushing the car off the thing, right? Like his take on the character is what they nailed down when they did The Spy Who Loved Me. It was just like he's comedic and charming, and like he can't be a jerk like Roger Moore or Sean Connery could be a jerk, right? Like it just isn't in his blood to do that. I think instinctually he's like, that's not me. I can't do that. But I can be charming. I can be funny. I can, do things with a smirk and a wink, And Charlie, if I were to say this, I'd say this. I would put this movie above on Her Majesty's Secret Service for this thing alone. I would say probably because of Roger Moore's performance. Not so much his plot and the story, but because of his performance, I do think he's still a better actor than Lazenby. And I do think, like, in a lot of the points you raised, I mean, yes, it's a little more tighter of a story. And yeah, we have the hockey moment and the ski thing, and it's a little convoluted, but I think that's where I would go. But I wouldn't go past Dr. No. I don't think it matches its simplicity and the fact that you were able to make a really good spy thriller mystery film with $1 million with a really good performance by Connery. Like it doesn't go. It
doesn't outclass it for you.
It doesn't outclass Dr. No, but I could see it. I could see where you're being like, it could edge out on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, and like I said, it had the advantage of, in the same way that The Spy Who Loved Me had the advantage of being a remake of You Only Live Twice, which is still at the bottom.
Yeah.
It was able to, because no doubt in my mind that they were aware of these similarities. There even something down to as simple as Draco and Columbo. This guy that is technically a bad guy, but he's helping Bond out. Like something as simple as that is like they have to have been aware. And then you add in the superficial things like the bobsled and all that.
The Luigi and the other Bond ally who only has like literally one line in the whole movie, who also gets killed.
Oh yeah.
Like that little piece, and it's also in the snow.
And that's why I say I can't help but think that John Glenn is like, "F you, Peter Hunt. I'm the boss now, bitch. I'm gonna remake your movie." Like it just.
But it's too close. It's not something I hate. Like I do, like that's something I like about the movie is that it does, because I even said that. I think at the end of Honor Majesty's Secret Service, I said that every movie after this is going to be some kind of homage or callback to any of the previous 6 movies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pick a movie. There's a scene in that movie that is like, oh yeah, that was in this movie. Oh, that movie. Oh, the train scene. We've done that already twice. Like literally, we've done the train thing twice now. In Live and Let Die, and we did the train scene in The Spy Who Loved Me. Like we've done it twice now. So the fact that they've done skiing scenes probably 3 times. This is the third time I think they've done skiing in a movie. It's like there's a reason for it.
It does become hard to compare it to the old ones because of course they should get it better.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like technically they find a way to. Because we're going to go back to Vienna at one point. We're going to go back to many of the same locations. It's just how are they shot? What technology is being used at that time? As far as what could you do for code?
I mean, we're talking 15 years between
those two, yeah.
Her Majesty's Secret Service, right?
Regardless, though, we still just can't get away from our power duo. And I still don't, I mean, none of us disagree with it. With Goldfinger and From Russia With Love, whether you would put Russia on top or Goldfinger on top of that duo, none of us disagree with those dominating. And it's what it comes back to time and again is like, because again, all these last episodes with Roger Moore, what I keep saying is when we argue about the goofy, because we all agree that they're goofy.
Yeah.
But what I keep saying is I don't want to just be like, here's our list. It's serious to goofy because I think that's boring, but also because you kind of need to squint through the goofy to see the bigger picture. And yes, as we all agree, goofy has weight. Like Moonraker just had so much, because I'm here and I'm like, but the bad guy motivation is great, and you guys are like, but Goofy, it's so goddamn goofy, you know. So what I've been trying to clarify in this episode is that like it's not like I just try to be goofy blind, but it's more like you do just have to realize like what these like intention matters is the shortest way to put it. Where, you know, like I said, they no matter how much they try to be smart about things, it's like it's like the producers are like, well, end of the day, we need to have more like the people are here like for assassins and for chase scenes and for these Bondisms, and as time goes on, we'll just keep struggling with the classiness of old versus the excellence of new technology and all that. And so like that's why I try to just be blind to the goofy, because this movie has its own fair share. I mean, they bring back drunk guy again, you know.
But I think that the thing that with the goofy in this movie though is really subdued in comparison to Moonraker. And even I would say that the darkness in this movie outweighs The Spy Who Loved Me drastically. Like I think The Spy Who Loved Me is still a goofier movie. I just think it's a better
nobody got their throat cut in a car.
Yeah, there was no throat cuts. There was no kicking a car over a cliff. There was nobody family getting gunned down in front of you type things. Like,
there was no statutory rape.
She was only 16 years old.
Look,
wink, wink.
They got all their goofy out in like a 15-minute period in this movie, from the car chase and like the little yellow car. That whole 15 minutes was that was my area of like, Jesus Christ. Hopefully,
yeah, but it is
quickly.
Fun. All that stuff is fun though.
It was fun, but I was like, please.
That car chase though, Scott, serves a purpose. Even if the car is a goofy looking car.
I'm not talking about just the goofy car, like the way they wrecked, like their reactions the whole time. They land in a tree.
Yeah, but don't you love that moment though, where Bond says, "Take the low road."
Not that low.
I like that chase scene, but I don't understand when the bad guys pull up right next to him. Like, shoot him.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Go backwards, forwards, quickly."
Go backwards, forwards, quickly.
Okay, with Nans, did they want to kill him or did they want to capture him? And that's always a question.
That's the thing I don't understand, because, and this happens in other movies all the time, they're shooting at Bond all the time, and then they get the chance to just like shoot him in the face right there, and they don't.
Yeah.
Just
but then, okay, as for the backwards, forwards, I think what she's saying is, go backwards, but forwards, but backwards. Yeah, she's trying to communicate it quickly, around, so I think it's kind of fun and clever.
But
I do like putting them in
that's the 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes for me, where I'm like,
the movie gets silly for a little bit.
Yeah,
it's all very
silly. With that scene, it's like borderline silly, only because I think the car is a silly looking car to begin with, and
not
then
just
like
the car.
It's not
it's like a car at all. It's the acting.
I thoroughly enjoy it though. Like I really do.
It's not a bad chase sequence.
Who doesn't love a drive through the country? Like Bond is cracking jokes.
Love a drive in the country, don't you?
Like before in Spy Who Loved Me, when Bond's cracking jokes as Jaws is attacking them, that undermines Jaws and doesn't make sense. But with this, when Bond is cracking jokes, like who doesn't love a drive through the country? That stuff works in scenes like this.
It does.
Because again, how many, and this is what I'm sorry, but this is what I keep getting at, which is how many, this is like our 50th chase scene. You know, this is like our 50,000th assassination scene. Eventually, it's like, as filmmakers, you can't just keep doing the same thing because people are going to get bored. You have to push the envelope and have fun with it. And that chase scene is a lot of fun. And as McCurdy pointed out, it's mostly fun because they take away Bond's supercar and they replace it with this hilarious little buggy thing that is a piece of shit. And they have fun with that. And to where it's not just speeding away and using gadgets and all that. It's like this weird crisscrossing mishmashing of going downhill and all that. And that's where it's fun. So even the guys getting stuck in the tree or Bond making jokes, I really have fun in that scene. I just really appreciate it. And you know, and
I'll give it that.
And like I said, when Bond takes over, driving is fantastic. Like, not fantastic, but that's just pure Bond. Like, you mind if I drive? And then he's like, I'm gonna work because Bond knows cars like really well.
Yeah,
he's a motorist,
there
so
were
he's gonna
just
work
points in that I remember going like,
It's just, it's again, like I keep saying, it's a reflection of the times. It's just a Roger Moore
But
era.
I will give it that. It was different in that.
I agree. It's like one of the few, besides the hockey scene, it's like it's the other standout Roger Moore-ish moment of the movie. And I think this movie has the least amount of those. Like, it's not, it's like the least goofy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe Live and Let Die is well, I mean, you got Sgt. Pepper, so what am I saying? But it's one of the least goofy Bond movies,
For sure.
or more movies at least, but it still has a little bit of it.
I think Live and Let Die was probably the darkest, and I'm not making, that's not racism. No,
but again, where are we at?
We're gonna put this movie above On Her Majesty's Secret Service, so it'll be number 6.
But I want to check with you guys
That's
to see
where
if
I'm at.
you, if you know,
everyone's good.
You guys,
again, I love the two. They're interchangeable for different reasons. It's whether you're in an inherently emotional mood or.
I will always have my personal list above this list, but that's fine. Like for the show, it's like it's what it is.
These two films are very, very close to me.
Reviewings of this movie, the net of people becomes clearer, and coming into this as my first viewing and being confused, like who's with who, what's going on, that did detract from the movie for me on this first viewing. But on another viewing, I would understand it better and could see it like being higher because of that.
Which is like, not to sound snooty, but that's one of those things where it does technically lend to the rewatchability. But if you don't want to watch the movie again, like you said, you'd rather watch Secret Service. If you don't want to watch the movie again, then it doesn't matter if it's got rewatchability. But I would argue, I do think that on a second viewing, everything makes more sense. On a first viewing, you're like, wait a second, I have to rewrite everything I thought was real. And I actually really like that. I like the fact that this whole deception thing really lends to a spy drama. Like I said, my only gripe is that once you know that Kristatos is the bad guy and you're watching him do his deception thing, at that point you're like, wait, why is he trying to kill Bond so hard? You know, maybe he should pull it back. But like I said, that's the filmmakers being like, well, but we still have to try to kill Bond. But then, like McCurdy said, it does kind of, because of the Russians and Kristatos in tandem, it does kind of cloud it enough to where it somewhat works. But then, like I said, when they meet up again in the restaurant, which I do really like the scene in the restaurant with when he meets up with Kristatos for the second time, who's like, that's Columbo, that's the guy. You gotta, and you probably are gonna have to kill that guy. And then they take the candle away, and Columbo goes and listens to it, and then he comes back, and then he sets Gilf on him. That's a fun scene. But then what happens the next day? Locke then goes and tries to kill him on the beach again. So it's like, what do you do? Is Kristatos trying to kill him? Is Locke working for the Russians, or is he working for Kristatos? And that's where maybe one scene or maybe a couple of lines could have fixed it. But overall, it still works because, like Scott said, it's like maybe it's like, okay, if we can kill Bond, cool. If we don't kill Bond, he'll then go clean up Columbo for us. So it doesn't blow it all up.
Just a quick clarification of the Gilf scene, though. Yeah. I think her wearing her hair up does not do her well. When she lets her hair down, she loses about 30 years.
Hey, that's Pierce Brosnan's ex-wife you're talking about there, bucko. You watch your mouth.
Not his ex-wife.
You watch your mouth.
Come at me, Pierce.
Hey, not his ex-wife.
Come on the podcast.
His widow
Argue
wife.
with us, Pierce.
That's his.
Put it to bed.
He's widowed.
I was unaware that he was a widow.
Mm-hmm.
That is sad. That is sad.
So lock it in, fellas. Like this. No heroin.
No heroin. Can we call that? Can we say that? Can that be the thing? I want that to be the thing on here. No heroin.
Just on the thumbnail?
No heroin.
No heroin.
Thumbnail. No heroin.
So we are settling on this movie at number 6.
That's what I'm asking. Are we all in agreement?
11 years older than Pierce.
Wow.
Makes sense.
I was going to say, I don't think she's that
10,
old.
11.
All right, are we good to
no
lock
Get
in?
her hair down. It worked.
I'm good.
You're good?
Okay, I'm good.
We are locking in. I don't need to say it again, Goldfinger. You know your time's coming. Goldfinger still at number 1. I love you, Goldfinger, but please. Goldfinger, number 1, From Russia with Love, number 2. Number 3, The Spy Who Loved Me, number 4. The Man with the Golden Gun, number 5. Dr. No. Welcome to the Party, For Your Eyes Only, at number 6. Honor Majesty's Secret Service, chilling at number 7. Thunderball, number 8. Live and Let Die, number 9. Moonraker, you goofy motherfucker, you're at number 10. Diamonds Are Forever at 11. You Only Live Twice. I know I gave you a lot of shit last time, but I still love you. You only live twice. I know you're not actually racist towards Japanese people.
You can't be the judge of that.
Yeah, Naniel-san.
Oh my God. To wrap this up, to answer, Scott, going back to your question, where's M? So unfortunately, between this movie and Moonraker, Bernard Lee was not doing so well. He had stomach cancer. He was diagnosed with stomach cancer between Moonraker and on this movie. So Moonraker was in 79. This movie's 81. So there's like a year's difference in between those two. In 1980, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. They were about to film this film. So instead of filming it, they decided, instead of recasting M on the spot, they said, okay, we're going to pull the character of Minister of Defense, which had been in the previous Bond films, and include the character of Bill Tanner, which I think you guys may remember in the later Bond movies, because I know most of you guys have seen Goldeneye and some of the other Bond movies. Yeah. But Bill Tanner is the
chief of staff.
Chief of staff for M. And he was in The Man with the Golden Gun. They didn't have a name for him. He wasn't named, but he is in that scene. So they put Bill Tanner in the scene. They took Bill Tanner and they took the Minister of Defense and they covered basically M's lines, essentially. So there's a throwaway line in there.
Well, you'd better go in. M's on leave, and the minister's arrived here with the Chief of Staff and wants to see you immediately.
All this stuff happens like right before he passed away. So M passes away. Bernard Lee, who had been M since the very beginning, had passed away. And so instead of recasting him, they decided to just put these two characters in place of him.
Yeah.
To fill out those scenes.
Can't recast him at this point.
And have happen.
Well, because I mean, think about it. They're really hoping that he's going to pull through, but he was, how old was he at that point?
He was in the 70s, I think.
Yeah, so because what you have is, just like when Desmond Llewellyn couldn't be there, when Q couldn't be there in Live and Let Die, and they just have Moneypenny and Bond himself kind of take over his lines. With this, Bond walks in, and it's actually, it's so adorable. His little scene with Moneypenny, where Moneypenny's like, ooh, James is going to show up. Her gadget is makeup. It's like, this is adorable. And like, she's so old now, and Roger Moore's so old, and it's like if you don't just do a little like, oh, well, like just aw when you see them together, like you don't have a soul. Just quickly, I try to not talk about the books too much, but when it comes to the books, when Bond walks in, Moneypenny's desk is there, and the Chief of Staff's desk is there. Like that little that room right there, that little entry room, has the Chief of Staff's desk and Moneypenny in the books. So like Bill's always there, and Bond has a special relationship with him, and they just kind of cut it out for the sake of ease in the films, of course. But with this, it was the perfect opportunity to have, because if you like blink, if you take a bite of food or go take a piss or something, you'll miss that, and you'll just think that they recast M. Like you'll just assume that Bill Tanner is M because he's behind the desk and he acts like him and everything. But you can see that they were really hopeful that Bernard was going to pull through because, as I've said in every episode, he's just awesome.
So there's this really touching story about Bernard Lee, like from Desmond Llewellyn. I think it was Desmond Llewellyn, but he said, I think it was either the set of Moonraker or the set of The Spy Who Loved Me. They were going out to dinner that evening, and they were in the hotel room, and I can't remember what he said, but where they were at. But they were in the hotel room, and there was this piano sitting there, and Bernard Lee decides to just go over to the piano and just starts playing, and they're like, "Hey guys, Bernie, you guys coming with? We're gonna go to dinner." And he's like, I'll catch up with you guys. They went to dinner, and they came back, and he was still sitting there playing the piano. So just kind of gives you a little taste of what that guy was kind of like. And I always thought that story was a little touching, and just like, this guy was really into the arts. He was really into his craft and what he did. And it's like we kind of miss this, but like James Bond, as far as Roger Moore, Sean Connery, Lisenby, even the later ones, like they take so much of the movie, right? Like they're every scene, but like, you know, Q and the rest of the gang, they only can do like, they maybe do a scene in the beginning of the movie and a scene at the end of the movie and their day is done. Like that's probably a 2-day, 3-day gig for them. You know what I mean? So it's kind of amazing that like they didn't work that much, but they still left an impact. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, you think about how many times we've gone back and all the, 12 films we've argued thus far, where we venture so far from Bond onto the supporting characters, you know. The Bond girls, the villains, how much M scenes matter, how much Q scenes matter. You know, it just goes to show that the films are made or broke by supporting cast. So.
Yeah. And you know, I know I keep not laughing, but I keep talking about Moneypenny being old, but they're all just great. You know, like every time Moneypenny's around, M and Q, they're just the best. And it really is. It's sad knowing that Bernard isn't going to be there in the next round of movies, but that's just the nature of it. We're not always going to have Roger Moore. We're not always going to have Q. We're all going to die one day, and the world's meaningless. Life sucks. But
damn.
Life's a bitch and then you die.
Life's a bitch and then you die. But all in all, there are a lot of people that have played M over the decades, and nobody has shit on Bernard.
Nobody does it better.
Nobody does it better. Listens to Bernard. So,
better.
Thanks, M. May you be on leave in paradise forever, dog.
Forever.
Cheers to Bernard. It's one of the sexiest moments in Bond when he pops off that robe of hers and she looks up at him and, you know, for your eyes only, darling. It's like,
then she looks like Liv Tyler.
Oh yeah, I love Liv Tyler.
Sure.
Tyler.
Who doesn't love Arwen?
You just like her because she's in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.